Freemasonry. Why hide wisdom in plain sight? Episode 4. Why wisdom comes in layers. What if I told you that almost 2,000 years ago, a teacher deliberately wrote a book so that most people wouldn't immediately understand everything he was trying to say? Not because the ideas were forbidden, not because he wanted to create an elite club, but because he believed something we've been exploring throughout this series. Some knowledge requires effort from the person receiving it, and his solution was fascinating. He hid the deeper teaching in plain sight. In our last episode, we explored the Zohar, garment, body, soul, and finally, the soul of the soul. We saw an ancient Jewish mystical tradition built around the idea that sacred teaching can contain progressively deeper levels of meaning. And we asked an important question. Did Freemasonry somehow inherit this architecture directly from Jewish mysticism? Maybe, but similarity isn't proof. So before we draw that conclusion, we need to widen our investigation, because something remarkably similar was happening in early Christianity. And one of the most interesting examples comes from a man named Clement of Alexandria. Clement was writing around the end of the 2nd century, and he believed that religious understanding could develop progressively. There was the faith accessible to the ordinary believer, but there was also something deeper. Clement used the Greek word gnosis, knowledge, not necessarily a different religion, not a replacement for faith, but a deeper understanding that could grow out of faith. And Clement did something fascinating with this idea. He didn't just write about layered knowledge, he constructed one of his books to demonstrate it. The book was called the Stromatees, usually translated as miscellanies, and if you read it expecting a neatly organized textbook, you're going to be disappointed. It wanders, it changes subjects. Ideas appear, disappear, and reappear. Important concepts can be buried inside what seems like a completely different discussion. But here's the interesting part. Clement essentially tells us he did that deliberately. He believed obscurity could serve as a safeguard. The casual reader might pass right over something, but the reader willing to slow down, study, compare passages, and do the work might discover another layer. Think about what that means. The deeper teaching wasn't locked inside a vault. It was sitting right in front of you. The difference was the reader. And brethren, does that sound familiar? How many times have you heard a Masonic lecture and then years later heard exactly the same words and suddenly thought, wait a minute, I've never noticed that before. But you had noticed it. Your ears had heard the words. What changed wasn't necessarily the ritual. What changed was you. That's almost exactly the principle we've been following since the beginning of this series. The temple didn't change for Yohanan ben Zakkai. His understanding of what had to be preserved changed. Pardes didn't change for the 4 rabbis. Their readiness was different. The Torah doesn't change in the Zohar's metaphor. The reader moves from garment toward body, toward soul. And now Clement gives us another version. The words can be sitting directly in front of you, while their meaning remains concealed, hidden in plain sight. Clement also gives us another important character. One of the great Christian thinkers who followed in the Alexandrian tradition was Origen. Origen took this idea of layered interpretation and made it much more systematic. He argued that scripture could be approached on multiple levels, a literal level, a moral level, and a spiritual level, and he connected those levels to the human being itself, body, soul, and spirit. Now think back to what we've already discovered: Peshat, Remez, Darash, Sod, and then garment, body, soul, and now, in Christian interpretation, literal, moral, spiritual. These aren't identical systems. We shouldn't pretend they are. But the family resemblance is difficult to miss. Different traditions keep arriving at a similar conclusion. The surface meaning may be true without being the complete meaning, and understanding the deeper level requires something from the student. Then another great Christian thinker pushes the idea in an especially important direction, Augustine of Hippo. Augustine argued that deeper interpretation shouldn't become an intellectual game. The point wasn't to discover some clever secret nobody else knew. The test was what the interpretation did to the person. Did it lead toward love, humility, a better life? If your brilliant interpretation simply made you feel superior to everybody else, you may have missed the purpose entirely. And now I think we're getting extremely close to Freemasonry. Because what is the stated purpose of the craft? Not simply to give men information, not to make them experts in symbols, not to create collectors of secrets. We say it much more simply. We take good men and make them better. That is a claim about transformation. The knowledge matters because of what the knowledge is supposed to do to you. And now look at the pattern we've uncovered. Yohanan ben Zakkai teaches us that wisdom has to be transmitted through living human beings. Rabbi Akiva and Pardes teach us that deeper knowledge requires preparation. The Zohar tells us that meaning can exist beneath meaning, garment, body, soul. Clement demonstrates that knowledge can be concealed in plain sight and discovered through effort. Origen organizes interpretation into ascending levels. Augustine asks the final question, did any of it actually make you a better human being? Different people, different centuries, different traditions, and yet they keep circling the same principle. Maybe wisdom isn't simply information. Maybe wisdom is formation. It forms the person receiving it. And if that's true, something about Freemasonry begins to make much more sense. Why ritual? Why allegory? Why symbols? Why repetition? Why degrees? Why not simply publish a 50-page manual called Everything Freemasonry Means and hand it to the candidate when he walks through the door? Because perhaps knowing the answer isn't the same thing as becoming capable of understanding the answer. And this idea isn't confined to Judaism and Christianity. Other traditions developed comparable distinctions. Islamic traditions distinguish between Zahir, the outward, and Batin, the inward or hidden. Other civilizations developed their own methods of progressively introducing deeper philosophical or spiritual understanding, which suggests that we may be dealing with something more universal than a single religious tradition. Perhaps human beings repeatedly discovered the same problem. How do you teach something that cannot be understood merely by being told? You create a journey. You begin with what the student can understand. You allow him to experience it. Then you give him something more. And eventually, if he's willing to continue doing the work, the student discovers that the real thing being constructed was never simply his knowledge. It was himself. And now we're ready to walk into the lodge. Because if this entire investigation is correct, then perhaps we should stop looking at the 3 degrees of Freemasonry merely as 3 ceremonies. Maybe there's something else. Maybe the entered apprentice, the fellow craft, and the master mason represent progressively deeper encounters with the same fundamental project, the construction of the human being. And when we reach the 3rd degree, something extraordinary happens. The craft doesn't give the candidate the ultimate secret. Instead, it tells him that something has been lost. Why would a fraternity built around transmitting knowledge deliberately place a lost secret at the center of its highest craft degree? That may be the biggest clue we've encountered yet, and that's where we're going next. Until then, keep asking good questions, keep looking beneath the surface, and never stop building yourself. I'm Gene Whetstone, author of Beneath the Temple. Thank you for watching.